Kwikot Solar Heater installation. Tools and parts needed. To begin installing our rooftop solar water heater, let's look at the tools and parts you will be using. Starting from the left, we have a gas burner, a tub of flux, some 3mm soldering wire, the digital timer that comes included with your system, a 22mm pipe cutter, a 400 kPa temperature safety valve, a double drain cock, a thermostatic mixing valve, a 400 kPa multi-valve, clips for the mixing valve, 2 vacuum breakers for the system, a Connex female coupler, 22mm equal T's, 22mm elbows, and 13mm and 14mm sockets. Some Tech screws that we will use to mount the universal bracket onto the roof, a multimeter and some test leads, a wire snipper, a star screwdriver and a flat screwdriver, pipe sets for the solar loop, a 22mm Connex elbow, a straight coupler 22mm Connex, and a straight coupler 22mm Connex socket, S-brackets to hold the manifold onto the roof, a universal bracket for a pitched roof to secure the water heater, and finally some 22mm copper pipe class 0. A note on pressure. The solar water heater has a max pressure rating of 400 kPa. If there is a pressure control valve at the property rated above 400 kPa, such as the 600 kPa, then it must be replaced with the 400 kPa valve supplied. If the pressure control valve is rated higher than 400 kPa, the warranty on the water heater and the manifold will be void. Even if the property already has a 400 kPa pressure control valve, it would be good practice to change it for the new valve. The position of the pressure control valve should be installed on the incoming cold water supply before it enters the building. This will ensure balanced pressure. The thermostatic mixing valve may malfunction if the hot and cold water's pressure isn't balanced. Assembling the manifold. Before we begin installing the water heater, we need to assemble the manifold and its frame. Start by using the screws provided with the manifold to attach the arms of the frame to the manifold itself. Then attach the lower rack to the arms, tighten the screws all around, then we fit the tube cups that will hold the solar vacuum tubes in place. Assembling the water heater bracket. Next, we need to assemble the water heater bracket that will hold the heater in place on the roof. First, attach the bracket arms to the upper rack using the screws provided. Next, screw the braces to the arms. And your bracket is ready for installation. Installing the water heater bracket. Next, we will install the water heater bracket. First, we will remove the tiles as necessary in order to place the cradle, and then we bend the cradle around the roof trusses and fit the aluminium through onto the roof trusses so that the cradle is secured when we place the water heater. Now that the universal bracket is secured, we can replace the tiles. Installing the water heater and piping. Our next step is to install the water heater and piping. With the water heater positioned on the cradle, we remove the feet. We will need to keep 2 screws aside so that when we turn the water heater into place, then we can just tighten those 2 screws in front of the cradle. You shouldn't tighten the screw too much though, so that you can still line up the water heater. Once the heater is lined up, you can then tighten the screws that secure the water heater onto the cradle. Next, we will install the double drain cock on the cold water side of the water heater. First we apply hemp, and then fit the drain cock and position it so that one of the sockets points straight upwards. If there's not enough clearance, a 45 bend can be used to clear the cover. Then we fit the pipe work on the cold side. In this case, we have already cut the pipes to length, so we only need to solder. Use a green scratching pad to clean the pipe to ensure that the solder adheres correctly. Then we position the pipes and solder the joins and wipe clean the joins. Now we'll push some R1 lagging over the pipes, and then using a hacksaw blade, we cut the R1 lagging, or you can use a Stanley knife if you prefer. Next we will clean the pipes and the tees. There are 2 tees on the cold line, one fitted at the top for the vacuum breakers and another at the bottom to supply balanced cold water to the thermostatic mixing valve of the water heater on the hot water side. An additional tee needs to be added after the PCV, which will feed the property's cold water plumbing to ensure that the property has balanced pressure. Next, we're going to fit the temperature safety valve and the Connex female on the hot side. This is the Connex female 22mm, which is fitted to the hot water outlet side. Next, we're going to scratch the Connex male to apply the hemp for the solar loop side. And now we'll fit the Connex male to the solar connection on the water heater. The solar connection is marked with a yellow sticker on your water heater. Remember that the hot pipe must be positioned at a distance of 200mm from the water heater. Next, we're going to fit the thermostatic mixing valve. One of the tees is going to the cold side, and the other tee is going to be fitted on the hot side, and the pipe going down into the roof takes the mix supply to your taps. The temperature of this water is controlled to a maximum of 55 degrees Celsius. Now we'll also apply R1 lagging on the hot side. We're applying the pipe cutter on the lagging so that it doesn't push forward when we solder the pipe. Next, we solder all the sides and apply the lagging afterwards. Remember to wrap a wet cloth around the valve so that we don't damage the valve when we heat up the pipes. Now we fit the vacuum breakers on the hot and the cold sides and tighten them. Remember to ensure that the vacuum breakers for this solar installation are not 30 centimeters above the tank, but they are at least 70 centimeters away from the hot and cold connections. If ever there is a water supply interruption, the vacuum breakers break the vacuum inside the water heater so that it can't drain back into the system. Now we'll cut the lagging open on one side so that we can fit it over the pipe. Again, we'll apply the lagging tape in order to seal the gap. By taping around these gaps in the lagging, we prevent any heat loss from the pipes. Installing the heater manifold. Next, we will install the heater manifold, which will transfer the solar energy from the solar vacuum tubes into the water heater tank. First, we place the manifold onto the roof to see where we can position the S brackets. And then we'll start with the solar loop of the pipes. These are the S brackets. Note that this is an older roof, so the S brackets don't fit easily onto the frame. That means we need to bend the S brackets in order to position the frame securely in the right place. Finally, we refit the loose tiles and the manifold is secured. Piping the heater manifold. Now we come to the piping of the heater manifold. First we're going to start with the cold side of the manifold. This part of the solar loop needs to connect this socket on the cold side of the heater to this socket on the cold side of the manifold. In this case, the pipe is too long, so we need to remove it from the lagging and cut it to size using our pipe cutter. This red inner tube is a silicone insert that prevents the water in the pipe from freezing. The silicone insert must not be cut. Next, we'll move the panel for positioning and replace the silicone insert now that we've cut the pipe to size. We have tightened this Connex socket previously, so the ferrules inside are crimped to the pipe. Now we're going to loosen the socket and fit the lagging over it again, and it will be tightened again. Now we're going to pipe up the hot side of the solar loop on the other side of the manifold, and then we tighten the Connex socket that is included with your pipe sets. Installing the solar vacuum tubes. The last part of the installation process is to fit the solar vacuum tubes into the manifold. We're going to fit the cups that the tubes will slot into at the bottom of the manifold. Next, we unscrew the holding caps from the cups holders so that there is room to slide the tubes into the manifold before we push them into place using these copper rods inside the tubes. Next, we apply thermal paste to the top of the rods, using your finger to rub it all around the upper part of the rod. From the vacuum tube into the manifold at the top, and that will heat up your water. The tube glass is tested to withstand the SABS test requirements of 38mm hailstones. The tube is made from 2 layers of glass which have a vacuum between them to prevent heat loss. In essence, the sun's energy penetrates the glass and heats the copper heat rod, which then transfers the heat to the water in the manifold. And now our solar water heater system is installed. All we do now is let the sun do its work and run a hot bath.